The April 9th Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee meeting, and I guess we need to do the roll call.
Mr. Appel,
Here.
Dr. Armstrong, Mr. Birkin, Mr. Castile, Ms. Champagne, Dr. Clark, Mr. Harris, Mr. Hollis, Ms. Holloway is not in attendance, Ms. Mellorin, Mr. Morris, Mr. Grabert. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is item 2.1.
2.1, consideration of the recognition of community partners. The recommendation is to recognize.
And I would like to recognize Mr. Morris at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, we've got some really important items on our agenda this morning as we consider appreciating the value of internships and apprenticeships for our high school students. And part of that is our engagement with our community partners. So this morning, got an opportunity to recognize two significant contributing community partners from my Bessie district. We've asked them to attend this morning. We can recognize them. We've got representatives from ExxonMobil and Tony Seafood with us this morning. So I'd like to recognize them and ask them to come down to the table.
Mr. Morris, do you have a motion you want to make?
The motion is to recognize, right?
That's the motion.
Yes,
so
sir.
We need a second on the motion. Mr. Harris, seconds. Any objection? No objection. Please come on down.
So thank you for joining us this morning. If you would, for the record, go ahead and state your name and the organization that you represent.
Darren Pizzolatto, Tony Seafood.
Please have a seat and make yourself comfortable. So let's start with Tony Seafood. So Tony Seafood has contributed invaluable support to the first STEM aquaponics program introduced in Louisiana schools. Participating students have benefited from the program's unique hands-on learning experience that integrates each of the 4 disciplines of STEM education. From hosting visits at their facilities, to educating students about the seafood industry, to hosting annual blind taste test events, to serving as an emergency resource supplier, and harvesting catfish at the end of the school year. Tony Seafood has helped provide a meaningful educational experience for students through practically illustrating key STEM concepts. So we thank you for your community engagement, your support over the last 7 years, I would add. So we thank you for that.
I appreciate it. I'd just like to thank Mr. Ronnie for this recognition and the Bessie Board for this recognition. We're just a little small part of this, but hopefully what we do does help. We appreciate it.
We're glad to have you as a partner and look forward to working with you ongoing. Also, we've got representatives from ExxonMobil this morning. If you would, introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Rory Denicola, ExxonMobil Public Affairs.
And I'm Jeff Bloom. I'm the Complex Mechanical Manager.
So thank you guys for joining us as well. I just got a couple of brief comments. Exxon does a lot in this community, but wanted to recognize a couple of things specifically. So ExxonMobil's support of initiatives such as the North Baton Rouge Industrial Training Initiative and the aquaponics program support in multiple schools across the state stands out as an exemplary model. With ExxonMobil's backing, the North Baton Rouge Industrial Training Initiative is a diverse community of industrial and educational partnership in the greater Baton Rouge area, works to provide a sustainable process to recruit, train, and develop North Baton Rouge residents for successful careers with local industrial employers. Also, ExxonMobil supported the first STEM aquaponics program in partnering with Tony Seafood. Over the past 7 years, ExxonMobil has generously contributed several $1,000s in grant funding and facilitated hundreds of hours of employee volunteer involvement to ensure the program's success. So we thank you for that and appreciate the partnership.
Thank you, Mr. Ronnie, and thank you, Bessie, for this recognition. I also want to say we love supporting the aquaponics at the local schools. That's exciting to watch the kids, especially when they get their white coat labs. And then the Britti, of course, is one of our pipelines into craft careers. And there's one also thing, y'all talking about the high school interns. This will be our 4th year, reaching nearly 150 local students for a high school internship. They go through an 8-week process Jeff is one of the supervisors that manages that. So that's something near and dear to our heart as well.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out today.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to add that.
Mr. Chair, if I
please.
could, just like to challenge my colleagues on the board also that as we recognize this group from Bessie District 6 this morning, look forward to the next Bessie meeting when we'll have a Bessie member bring and recognize a community partner from their Bessie district. We could establish that tradition. I think it'd be great messaging to community partners throughout the state. And just look forward to hearing from each of you guys with your interests along those lines.
That's exactly my sentiments. Dr. Clark and I had a meeting with the Jefferson Parish School System on Friday, and it was a topic of conversation that we get more and more students involved in both apprenticeships and internships, because it's important to the future of these young people as we go forward. But let's take a break for a second and let the photographers do their thing. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. The next item,
Your
on the
consent-
agenda is, go ahead,
Your
number 3.
consent agenda is ready for approval, adding items 7.3 through 7.5.
I guess we need a motion to accept the consent agenda. Dr. Clark? Mr. Berkman? Any objection to accepting the consent agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is accepted.
Your next item is on page 16. Item 4.1, consideration of a report regarding classroom materials related to litter and drug prevention, presented by Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser. The recommendation is to endorse.
I believe Lieutenant Governor is not here, but I think he's got representatives. Come on forward.
Can we get a motion?
We need a motion to accept the report.
Champagne. Ms. Champagne, and a second? Who's the second?
Please identify yourself and.
I need a second.
Oh, you need a second.
Clark, gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
Good morning. I'm Susan Russell, and I'm...
Excuse me, could you speak a little closer to the mic? These are not very strong.
How's that? There you go.
Perfect.
Thank you. I'm Susan Russell, Executive Director for Keep Louisiana Beautiful, and I'm here on behalf of the Lieutenant Governor and Keep Louisiana Beautiful to ask for your consideration of a new education lesson plan initiative that we are embarking on. As y'all are aware of, Louisiana has a huge litter problem. We recently did a study that documents that at any given time there is approximately 143 million pieces of litter on our roadways. This is a cost of $91 million, and 92% of those polled believe Louisiana has a huge litter problem. It is a problem that affects our wildlife, it affects our environment, it affects our quality of life, safety, our health, and it also contributes to flooding. It is a huge problem that we have, and to address this properly, we're talking about an attitudinal, a behavioral, and a cultural shift, and that's really hard to do. And so the approach is multifaceted. It involves education. We need to teach young people at a young age how to care for their environment, how to be good community stewards. Awareness is a key piece to this, as well as removal and enforcement. And so what we are here today, because we do have programs that address prevention, and we have a litter hotline, and we have grants, and we have all these different, but today we're talking about our education lesson plans that we put together. And we do teacher workshops. We're trying to get this into the hands of all the school boards and the schools and the teachers and encourage the use of it. We also provide grants to schools and teachers to help them implement these lessons in the classroom. We give you an example, we provided a grant recently to Clean Pelican, who partnered with several local schools to have the students create an app to document and track litter. And so those are just some of the examples of the things that we're doing to address the education part. The lessons that we go through touch on how litter is harmful to animals, mapping litter in the community, and comparing that to the research that we found in our statewide litter study. Understanding the disposal and the management of trash so that it doesn't become litter. Personal choices, how your personal choices can make a huge difference. Understanding microplastics and plastics in our environment, non-point source pollution, recycling, reusing, reducing, and the watershed. And so we've aligned these with the student standards. Litter is a tool that unfortunately I think everyone across the state can relate to, because it's a visible problem in all parts of our state. So it is a tool that teachers can use to teach on these issues. And so with that, I will take any questions from the board.
Do we have any questions? Thank you. Is there anybody else with you? I thought there were two representatives, or?
It's just me.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your coming, and we have a motion to accept.
There's another component, so we're going to move on to the drug prevention.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank
There is
you.
somebody else with you. I knew there was somebody else with you. Good morning. Who would like to?
Good morning. Hi, I'm Dara Lemoyne Johnson, a retired early childhood educator with 37 years teaching first grade. I would like to thank Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser and members of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education for allowing us to present Kiki's Red Ribbon School Celebration. Seymour Foundation is a respected Louisiana-based...
Excuse me one second. Again, pull the microphone a little closer so everybody can hear.
Good.
Okay.
The Seymour DeFair Foundation is a respected Louisiana 501c3 nonprofit organization committed to promoting drug prevention education among elementary school students. We were established in 2015. The foundation is an educator-centric organization that has a strong record of developing research-based and evidence-informed programs that empower children to make healthy choices and lead drug-free lives. I would like for our Team Seymour presenters to introduce themselves.
Carol Allen, retired teacher, principal, university professor, and superintendent of schools.
I'm Rebecca Marler. I'm a retired teacher of 41 years of experience from Lafayette Parish, and I retired from the Diocese of Lafayette in Louisiana, and I'm on the advisory board for the Seymour Fair Foundation.
Good morning. My name is Craig Wiles. I'm a retired DEA agent, and I currently serve on the faculty at Tulane University.
One more.
Sorry.
Hi, Matthew Green, St. Tammany Parish School Board member from Mandeville and parent of 2 students in our public schools.
Okay. Kiki's Red Ribbon School Celebration is an initiative of the Seymour DeFair Foundation, and it stands at the forefront of early childhood drug prevention education. Our program coincides with the National Red Ribbon Week campaign, which is October 23rd through 31st. Our initiative empowers students to make knowledgeable and healthy choices, fostering a commitment to live a drug-free lifestyle. The program has been crafted by educators across the state, and we reach the children in grades K through 6. The program features 5 professionally developed research-based models that contain engaging lessons, materials, classroom activities for the students. Additionally, the program materials are designed utilizing the social-emotional framework with drug awareness, empowering elementary and middle school students with critical topics such as self-awareness, effective decision-making skills, understanding and resisting peer pressure, and comprehending the far-reaching consequences of drug use. All of the materials comply with the Louisiana state standards, and it guarantees that the students meet the benchmarks, and the program is seamlessly incorporated into an existing school framework. If you notice in your swag bags that you received, you may have noticed the character, and that is Seymour the Fair. And Seymour the Fair was the 1984 Louisiana World Exposition mascot. He is, in 1984, he reigned as the mascot for the Louisiana World Exposition. He starred in the Seymour and Cajun Critters Just Say No pre-adolescent program in 1987. In 2015, he reemerged under the Seymour DeFair Foundation, and in 2018 to the present, Kiki's Red Ribbon School Celebration has been Seymour's initiative. To learn more about the Red Ribbon School Celebration, about Kiki Camarena, and why we have the Red Ribbon Week presentation, we'd like to present Craig Wiles.
Hi, good morning. Yes, I'd like to talk about Kiki Camarino for a minute. An American hero for sure, former Marine and a DEA agent who was stationed in Guadalajara. During his tour there, he was targeting and investigating marijuana trafficking organizations. While he was exiting the consulate one day on his way to meet his wife, Mika, he was kidnapped by members of this organization and corrupt government officials. For 3 days, he was kept alive while he was tortured, and an effort to obtain intelligence information and informant information that was leading Kiki and DEA to look for these fields, these growing fields, and seize these locations and arrest these offenders. After 3 days, he was killed and his body was recovered. What we've learned from Kiki and his legacy is truly how big the problem is and the impact of abuse. We've also learned from his legacy the importance of prevention and how, as a community, in getting in front of this, we can start with communications.
You may say, why early childhood intervention? Early childhood programs and intervention in drug prevention are vital in providing developmental support and are crucial for nurturing a drug-free future. The programs that we offer focus on young children, particularly those at heightened risk, providing them with the foundational knowledge and skills to resist drug use. We encompass a range of services. Some of our key benefits are awareness and cognitive development, educating the young mind about the dangers of drugs, therefore fostering informed decision-making skills from an early age. social and emotional resilience, building the skills necessary for resisting peer pressure, and understanding the consequences of drug use, and the preparation for future challenges, equipping the children with knowledge and skills to face potential drug-related situations in their educational journey and beyond. The key benefits also are targeted support. We provide specialized guidance for children who might be more vulnerable due to their environment or family history, family engagement involving families in drug prevention strategies to create a supportive home environment. In the materials you received with the lessons, we also have lessons that the parents can do at home with the students during Red Ribbon Week. And the long-term impact is to establish a foundation for healthier, drug-free lifestyles will lead to better overall educational and professional outcomes.
I'm going to talk to you a little bit about integrated curriculum approach. All of us are old enough in this room to know that long time ago when everything was done by rote, we didn't retain or really absorb very much. One of the key categories of an integrated curriculum approach is the interdisciplinary teaching methods. I'd like to just remind you of some of the points of interdisciplinary teaching methods. First of all, it's a combination of subjects. It is an emphasis on projects. It covers a wide variety of sources of material, not just textbooks. It highlights relationships among concepts. It uses thematic units. It has flexible scheduling, and it uses flexible student grouping. So the keys to all of this, as you see, is planned and organized flexibility. Now I'm going to just quickly go over I think you just did that, didn't you? The advantages. Integrated curriculum offers advantages. Did you do that, Darryl?
No.
Okay, then I will do this. There are several advantages of this kind of approach. Enhanced learning experience is one. Relevance and context is another. Critical thinking and problem solving. Retention, and this does not mean retaining the students, it means the students retain what they are hearing. And collaboration skills. The program overview contains our goals and objectives, and as all of us know, if you don't know where you're going and how to get there, then you're just fighting a losing battle. And the difference between a goal is our outcome. Where do we want to be? The objective is what do we do and how do we measure what we're doing to be sure we're attaining that. I do not think I need to read the goals and objectives to you. They're listed here, and we're short on time. So I'm going to jump right over to our target audience. We are targeting elementary students, and there's a reason for that. If you don't start young, when are you going to get them? We've tried on several occasions in education to wait until kids get to high school. I used to be a high school teacher. I can give you personal experiences of kids who came to my class after going out on the hill during lunch and dropping LSD in their eyelids or smoking pot. It just doesn't work to wait. So we want to start with elementary grade students and middle grade students in grade K through 6. The curriculum and education approach is based on social and emotional learning. I would like to also say that this program has been rigorously vetted and endorsed by the St. Tammany Parish School System Curriculum Committee in 2018 and was subsequently reaffirmed in 2023. Let's just talk a little bit about blending research and evidence-based curriculum. This is the basis of all effective teaching and learning experiences. We have two forms of research, qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative is more subjective. It often depends on interviews and personal insights, and it gives us insights into learning's subjective findings. It's important. And then we have quantitative, and that's based on data and statistical analysis. We have used both of these factors in our development of this curriculum. When you're integrating an evidence-informed approach and enhancing curriculum effectiveness for optimal outcomes, it's important to go to the people who know their information. You are going to hear today from Mr. Matthew Green, who is a member of the school board of St. Tammany Parish, and you've already heard from Mr. Craig Wiles, who is a former DEA agent, or head, right, Craig? This committee also benefited from the information from Mr. Harold Patton, who is deceased, but who was also a DEA special agent during his time. This curriculum aligns with the State Department of Education guidelines. We are aligned with health and English language arts. Now, I'll just summarize my little part of this program. The program components include a comprehensive curriculum, interactive activities, resource materials, parental engagement, which is so very important. And if you don't have this, why bother? Pre and post assessments. Thank you.
If you notice, we have some of the modules that are represented in the curriculum materials. Like in day one, the students would focus on who is Kiki Camarena and why is it important for them to live the life like he lived. If you look, we have the materials for the teacher, we have the instructional guide, the material list, the activity sheets that go with it, the student assessment would be day one. And then if you notice, we have pictures of some of our assemblies. At the end of the week, on the last day, we involve our community. We get the community involved in helping us put together an assembly for the students. We have drug-free messages that the children do at recess. So some of the activities can be done during class time, and then other activities can be done during recess. Or in Lafayette, the teachers did the health activities during their PE time. So the whole lesson, all of the curriculum grades, K to 6, all the materials can be used interactive throughout the day, and we're only focused on Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd through 31st. Mika Camarena, whose husband died in the line of duty, and we have Craig Wiles present on Kiki Camarena. His wife was at Pontchartrain Elementary the first year and saw the whole program in action. And later, in our closing, we have a letter from her that we would like to. So I'll just go through the slides. The children, if you notice, the children were involved in poster contest. We also have grades 4 through 6 working on the effects of drugs on the brain, building their own brain caps. And if you remember, at the time that our program started, Mr. Trafels was our superintendent, and our picture of my class, my first grade class, wanted to build the brain caps, even though they weren't 4th through 6th graders, and we actually made his newsletter of the month. Day 3 is the only day that the students really focus on good and bad drugs, and the only drugs we focus on are alcohol, tobacco, and over-the-counter drugs. The rest of the week, it is all about them, the student themselves. if you look at the slides, we have a picture of the assembly. One of the years that we participated in the Red Ribbon School Celebration, the children actually created their own capes and did all of their language activity on the capes and wore them to the assembly. And then we actually invited our community. We had the ATF come and do a presentation with the students on stage. We include our music teacher to guide us with songs for the week. So it's a collaborative effort between the parents, the school, our community to get involved with Red Ribbon Week. And then we will turn it over now to Rebecca Marler, who will just give you a brief how our program works for teachers. The program is free access on our website, and Becky will go through that.
The entire program is downloadable from the foundation website. So it makes it very simple for teachers to obtain the information and follow directions. The school implementation guides, school announcements, parent communication in English and Spanish, teacher guidelines, lesson plans, goals, and objectives. That's what makes it so convenient to do this program. The program materials include activity workshops, worksheets, instructional videos, music, vocabulary lists, material lists, and enrichment modification activities. This ensures that the school and the teachers can smoothly incorporate the program into their curriculum, into their classroom agendas with minimal preparation, confidently relying on the foundation's resources to enhance the educational offerings without incurring extra effort. So it makes it easy for teachers to download and follow this. That's all they have to do.
All right. So we're going to move on. It is very easy to get your school started as far as having, usually the guidance counselor takes over Red Ribbon Week in many schools. So she is the one who leads it up, and you get teacher volunteers to help just get your school together. The student work can be hung up on bulletin boards for the week. It can be used for the assembly decorations. We just want to get the kids excited about learning that is healthy for them at such a young age. I would like to now introduce Matthew Green, who is parent and St. Tammany School Board rep for our testimonials.
Thank you, Dara. Thank you, members of Bessie and Superintendent Bromley. Thank you for your time. I have a great appreciation for what you do, having served on the St. Tammany Parish School Board for 6 years now. So I'll be very brief. I want to thank first Dara and David for their passion for our kids and our schools. David's back there hiding somewhere, but I've gotten to know him, and when you speak with him, he is he's super passionate about this project and the value it provides for our kids. I really want to speak to you because I have two kids that have participated in this pilot program at Pontchartrain Elementary School starting back in 2018 with my daughter, who's now a sophomore at Mandeville High School, and then I have a sixth grader at Chafunka. This is a powerful program. If you grew up in the metro area in the 80s, you remember Seymour, and you immediately visualized 1984 World's Fair. This morning I woke up and asked my kids, I said, hey, do you remember Red Ribbon Week from Pontchartrain? And they were like, is that the one they brought the big pelican in, the mascot? And like, that's it. That's the marketing that it provides, the real powerful image of seeing at a very young age and relating that to a drug-free lifestyle. So just want to bring that because it's a powerful message. It's a powerful way to, at an early age, introduce our children to a drug-free lifestyle. And, you know, I think we should take it upon ourselves to give this serious consideration, to expand the program throughout the state so we can introduce a free curriculum to our children and really foster the lifestyle, of the drug-free lifestyle. Thank you, members.
And we would like to conclude our presentation with Craig Wiles and a letter from Mika Camarino.
Thank you. And although a Red Ribbon Week was established in celebration of Kiki Camarino's work, his hard work, and his dedication, Mika Camarino has continued his efforts through her prevention. I'm writing to express my heartfelt acknowledgement of the profound impact of Kiki's Red Ribbon School celebration and to offer my wholehearted encouragement for the Bessie Board's consideration and ultimate approval of the classroom materials for all elementary and middle schools throughout Louisiana. Having been involved in the initial stages of this initiative, I have witnessed its evolution and positive influence on our young students. When I attended the premieres of Kiki's Red Ribbon School Celebration in 2018 in St. Tammany, Lafayette, and Orleans Parish, Beta Test schools, I was deeply moved by the dedication and enthusiasm displayed by the students, educators, and community members alike. During my visits, I had the privilege of touring the schools and observing the incredible seat work produced by the students. Their artwork, including mock drug-free license plates, individual drawings of I'm Better Drug-Free, Kiki's drug-free pledges, and drug-free theme drawings, adorned all the school hallway bulletin boards, creating an atmosphere of empowerment and inspiration. The special bulletin board, named Kiki and Seymour's Hall of Fame, was a testament to the impact of this program on our youth. The school-wide assemblies where students sang God Bless America and received recognition from school staff, systems officials, local public and law enforcement officials, and the leadership team of the DEA New Orleans Division were a testament to the community-wide support for Kiki's Red Ribbon School Celebration. I was honored to provide a closing speech emphasizing the importance of living a drug-free lifestyle, being good citizens, and excelling in school. As someone who continues to support Kiki's Red Ribbon School Celebration and ongoing efforts of Seymour to Fair, I firmly believe that pre-adolescence drug education is critical in shaping the future of our communities. By approaching the classroom materials and approving these materials and supporting Kiki's Red Ribbon School Celebration and all elementary and middle schools throughout Louisiana, the Bessie Board will play a pivotal role in fostering a generation of informed and responsible drug-free students. I encourage the esteemed members of the Bessie Board to recognize this initiative's significance and its positive impact on our youth. Your support and approval will empower our students and contribute to building safer and healthier communities throughout Louisiana. Thank you for consideration. With heartfelt appreciation, Mika Camarino.
That's it.
I would just like to close with saying Seymour has 4 initiatives that we're working on. We have our own Louisiana state license plate, which when we get proceeds, which funds what we do so the teachers can have access to all materials free. We also are working and hope that today we get approval with the Kiki's annual Red Ribbon Week school celebration. We are working with Senator Beth Mizell and Senator Bill Wheat on getting Seymour as the Louisiana drug-free ambassador for the state. And then we would love to get the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor to participate in Let's Paint Louisiana Red, Kiki's Red Ribbon School Celebration, October 23rd through 31st. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to leave you with one number, and the number is 305 for 1 every 5 minutes. That's the number of deaths in the United States for drug overdose.
Are there any questions?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Does anybody on the board want to question or comment? Well, I just would like to say it's great to have such volunteer support of children and the school systems, and this important initiative is really something. It's very impressive, and we appreciate y'all coming.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it,
you.
and thank you for giving us the time to present. We appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you all. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
at this point, we have a motion to accept the report. Do we have any? We already got it second. It's just, do we have any objection to receiving the report? No objection to report standards. Thank you.
Your next item is on page 17, item 5.1, consideration of state certified world languages immersion schools. The recommendation is to approve as outlined.
Okay, we need a motion. Stacy? Miller, Mr. Miller.
Birkin?
Okay. Rennie, do we have any audio? Do you want to read the specifics?
Mr. Appel, Sharon Kays on our team would like to make a brief
No, there she
presentation.
is, okay.
Just
Thank
some
you.
brief words. Sharon Case with the department. Today, we would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge 8 schools across 3 different parishes that interstate that are eligible for the distinguished honor of being a Louisiana State Certified World Language Immersion Site. The application process to become a Louisiana State Certified World Language Immersion Site is rigorous. It requires true commitment to ensuring those students have the necessary support and access and exposure to attain world language proficiency that really makes them able to succeed in a global community. The state certification for world language immersion site application is a process that has 3 components. There are questionnaires. There's a really complex world language immersion site visit rubric and a site visit audit. There are 8 schools. Some are renewals and some are new. Fairview Elementary in Calcasieu Parish, Geraldine Boudreaux Elementary in Jefferson Parish, Hines Charter School, the Lakeview campus in Orleans, Hines Charter School, the UNO campus in Orleans as well. The International School of Louisiana, the Dixon campus is a Type 2 charter. The International School of Louisiana, the West Bank campus, Type 2 charter. International School of Louisiana, the Uptown campus, Type 2 charter. And finally, Lycée Français de la Nouvelle-Orléans, the Priestley campus is a Type 2 charter. We'd like to pause to recognize if any of these schools are here today. We're going to be inviting the recipients to come to the June Bessie when we do our biliteracy seals as well, and they'll receive a certificate and have a reception then. Did want to thank you for your attention. This is quite a rigorous application process and an honor for these schools.
Thank you. Do you have any comments? What's that? Please.
I just would like to recognize that most of these schools are in my district, Arlington Parish, where we work hard for kids, and there are charter schools, so good job, Arlington Parish. Charter school network.
Where's the young lady? She left? I was just going to ask her a question. Could you come in?
While she comes, Mr. Appel, I'd like to, I think it's accurate that Lycée Français is both accredited in the United States, but also accredited in France.
Yes.
And it is the largest immersion school in all of the Americas.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so I think that's a pretty cool concept.
In the course of some earlier conversations, we have discussed the significance of language, alternate languages, on the overall learning of a child. And I'm just wondering if you have some data that supports what I've read personally, that children that have multiple language training in school actually do much better in mathematics and some reading and so forth.
And especially reading, I think we pulled some of the data for some bills that are across the street, Ms. Townsend. I think we can share that probably with Bessie, and then some initial literacy screening data, especially for those students in immersion programs. While the initial literacy screening for kindergarten immersion programs, for example, they spend 100% of their time in their target language. So those initial screenings seem to be somewhat lower, but the progression of those times, the students in those immersion programs by far outperform students in other programs. We do have that data we can share with the board.
I would like to see it, and especially not so much from immersion's perspective, but also just for general language in traditional schools.
Happy to share any data we have.
Thank you. Any other
Ms.
questions?
Case,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I think I remember a stat from our team of students that were in 8 years of an immersion program scored 7 points higher than students not on the ACT. Is that?
Yeah, I think I remember that data too. Honestly, our world language folks are traveling in Spain right now, recruiting to have Spanish teachers for some of our IATs. So we do have some of that data, and we'll be happy to share it with you.
Yeah, I've read reports like this too. Mr. Morris, you have a question?
Yeah, I just have one more data point to share, add to Dr. Clark's comments. My research shows that we currently have about 8,660 students in the immersion program. So it's quite a significant group there. So appreciate the support that we're getting.
Yeah, we have a new summit session this year, Mr. Morris, for system leaders interested in open immersion schools to provide some more guidance and step-by-step instructions of how to do that. Really trying to encourage that program.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much, and if you could get that data, I'd appreciate seeing it. Okay. All right, item number 6.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I could, I'd like to take a point of privilege. We've had some great testimony this morning for some of our community partners and community volunteers. I'd also like to recognize a group of teachers that we have with us this morning. So the Louisiana Educator Advocacy Development, the LEAD Fellowship, is with us this morning. If you guys could, please stand. We'd like to recognize you. So this is a group of Louisiana educators and administrators who are ready to take their advocacy efforts to the next level. The LEAD Fellowship empowers participants to elevate their voices as advocates for all students. The fellowship is in its 12th year and has fellows from across the state representing all grades, school types, and experience levels. The LEAD Fellowship provides educators with opportunities to study relevant policy, engage with local and state policymakers, and ensure that educator voice is at the center of decisions that impact them. So thank you guys, appreciate your work, appreciate you coming out today, and we look forward to working with you going forward. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, we had a motion on item 5.1, motion and a second. Do we have any objection to the motion? The motion stands adopted.
Your next item is on page 19, item 6.1, consideration of the alternative education programs and alternative education schools for the 24-25 school year. The recommendation is to approve as outlined.
Okay, do we have a motion on that one? I need a motion.
Motion to approve. We need a second?
Second. You
We
can't
need a
second it.
motion and then a second, yeah.
Yeah, we need a second. You made the motion.
All right.
Mr. Harris made the second. Okay. Dr. Brumley, do you have any comments? Do we have any further audience? Okay. So item 6.1 is moved and seconded.
objection?
What's that?
Any objections?
Is moved and seconded. Do we have any objections to that motion? No objections. The item stands adopted. Item 6.2.
Your next item is on page 28, item 6.2, consideration of updates regarding course choice providers for the Jumpstart Summers program. The recommendation is to receive the report and approve the providers as outlined.
Okay, we need a motion. Ms. Mellon and Mr. Harris seconds it. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Okay, do we have any cards on this one?
No cards for this
No
one.
cards. Do we have any comments, Dr. Brumley? Okay, so motion seconded on item 6.2. Any objections to the adoption of the motion? Motion stands adopted.
Your next item is on page 30, item 7.1, consideration of the membership of the Computer Science Content Standards Committee. The recommendation is to approve.
I need a motion. Ms. Mellerin moves. Mr. Birkin
Birkin.
seconds. Okay, do we have any cards on this one?
Yes, we do.
Dr. Brumley, do you
Yes,
want to make?
sir.
Please, go ahead.
Mr. Appel, Dr. Jenna Chasson will come to the table and make a presentation on this particular standards writing committee for computer science. Just as she comes up, I would highlight for everyone in the audience and everyone on the board that this is the state of Louisiana's first attempt at computer science standards, and so this is really uncharted territory for our state, so we think that this is exciting times. I would also like to share with the board, it's not related to the computer science standards directly, but we also have kicked off our AI task force working group, and that group is meeting right now and looking at artificial intelligence and trying to think about how it can be utilized, how we can keep students and teachers safe in that utilization process, building some guardrails around artificial intelligence, but also some best practices for the state. And so the goal there is that we would ultimately, at our large teacher summit this summer, have a few sessions around our AI framework. And so that's happening too. But that's not a standards writing process like the computer science process is, but I felt like it was related. So I just wanted to at least make you all aware that we do have this AI work group happening as well. Dr. Chasson?
Good morning, Jenna Chasson, Department of Education. Happy to provide you all updates this morning on our computer science standards writing process. Act 541 of the 2022 legislative session created the Computer Science Education Act, which called for a Computer Science Advisory Commission that worked really hard over the course of a year to produce a report that ultimately recommended that as a state we develop our first set of computer science standards. At our December BESI meeting, we presented the vision, goals, processes, and timeline, which will serve as the roadmap towards a set of comprehensive K-12 standards, which will prepare students for college and the workplace through increased digital literacy skills and a progression of computer science concepts and experiences. Today, we take another important step in this journey as we ask you all to consider and approve our committee selections. This standard-setting process will ensure that Louisiana graduates have the ability to apply analytical and critical thinking skills, are able to demonstrate digital literacy, and are able to utilize technology in ways that make them an integral part of the workforce needs in our state. We follow a very similar standards writing process for all of our standards review committees, and we've done the same here for our computer science standards committees. Ms. Sharon Nikes oversees our entire academic content division and has experience in supervising standards review processes in the past. And Jamie Mixon on our academic content team is our director of computer science and STEM and is a content expert and also supervises 3 content experts on that team. So we feel very well prepared and positioned to do this important work. Through a structure that includes both steering committee members and grade band work groups, standards writing committee members will work collaboratively to draft standards and review public comment. You'll see here the makeup of the Computer Science Steering Committee consisting of 9 members representing different groups. We have 1 K-5 classroom teacher, a 6-8 classroom teacher, 9-12 classroom teacher, a 9-12 computer science teacher of an industry-based credential course, a school system leader, business and industry representative, a higher education computer science representative, and a higher education cybersecurity representative, as well as a parent or guardian. All of these steering committee members also serve on a standards work group. These work groups represent the individuals who will actually compose and develop the standards. And then that steering committee is also representatives from their work groups who will come together and ultimately make the recommendation to you all of the standards. We released the Computer Science Standards Writing Committee application on January 5th, and it closed on February 5th. Through various communication structures such as newsletters and monthly calls, the application reached educators, systems, and school leaders across the state, in addition to members of industry and higher education through social media and various networks such as the Louisiana Computer Science Teachers Association, LaSTEM, and STEM pathway providers. We received a total of 115 applications, which is really amazing, and these 115 applications were very strong with many individuals with very substantial qualifications. So we had a great pool for the selection. And from these applications, just 27 individuals were selected for the committees. Applications were scored using a blind scoring process. This is very similar to what we've done in the past for other standards review committee selection. This blind scoring process took place across multiple teams and individuals, with preference points given to those individuals with teaching experience, computer science expertise, and experience serving on education committees. After reviewing total scores, additional consideration was given for geographic location and demographic information to make sure that we were really representing the entire state. Within each category of membership, the highest scoring applicants were selected to serve and are being presented here today for consideration and approval. This next slide outlines the 27 members of our K-12 Computer Science Standards Writing Committee membership. Please note the 2 students included and notated with an asterisk will serve as non-voting advisory members. And 9 of these 27 individuals will represent their respective work groups on the steering committee. Next, we'll take a look at our timeline from here. The standard-setting timeline is designed to allow the committee 4 months to work on writing, as well as time for public comment, which is always a part of our process. Although this is a very ambitious timeline, prior work of the Computer Science Education Advisory Commission and the recommendations from that body will provide a firm foundation for this process. Pending BESI approval, Louisiana students and teachers can begin implementing the new computer science standards by the start of the 25-26 school year. Through the K-12 computer science standards and a strong vision for computer science and STEM, our students will have the skills and knowledge to achieve bright STEM futures. We look forward to engaging with the selected membership of these committees and to all of our computer science stakeholders as we journey through this standards writing process to set a strong foundation for computer science education in our state. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Chasson, for that great presentation. Would like to also mention, based on some feedback from the board, the importance, particularly Mr. Appel, your vision for the incorporation of logic. One of the things that this group is tasked with doing, they created a framework, our team, and one of the elements of the framework is algorithms and programming.
Right.
And so we believe that we can embed information relative to logic in the standards under that particular framework.
I think that's very important. The other thing, Dr. Chasson and I had a long conversation yesterday about this, and not so directly related to standards as to the delivery of the education process. There may be a nuance where there's the two tracks, the industry-based track and the academic track, are somewhat different. For instance, if you're going into industry, you may be more, you may need more of practical understanding of computer science applications. Whereas if you're going into academic career, you may need more information as to the basis of it, such as computer programming and database and so forth and so on. So not specifically related to the standards, but related to how it's delivered. The districts may want to think in terms of a fork, if you will. So those that would be following an industry track might take a slightly different nuance, and those following an academic track would take a somewhat different nuance. Anyway, do we have any, let's see, we do have one card. Caroline Romo, you'd like to come forward?
Good
Please.
morning. Caroline Romer, Executive Director, Louisiana Association of Public Charter Schools. I'm going to somewhat be a hitchhiker and use this for purposes of talking about legislative session and how the department and BESI works with legislators on issues in particular around curriculum. There's a bill right now, for example, that would mandate computer science as a course you have to take before you can graduate. Fine, great. However, it doesn't feel like that bill was connected directly to the department or to these standards. We have many new legislators. If they are not new, they are new to Senate and House Education Committee. And I would just ask that we all do a better job working with them so that they understand how you set standards, what task force and committees you have. Again, for example, the legislator carrying this computer science requirement at the table stated that he was unaware that there was a task force specific to standards around computer science. So again, no problem requiring computer science. It is the future, it is here. But again, it is frustrating to keep sitting at the legislature, listening to them decide what should be in curriculum. I wholeheartedly believe that sits with this body. Not everyone agrees with us on that point, but I would urge you and the department to really lean in with legislators so they do understand the work that is happening behind the scenes on these things. Again, we find it frustrating that sometimes there seems to be a disconnect. And as an association, and I think I speak in general on the public school side, as we push standards and requirements, we would like to see more interaction and collaboration with that legislative body. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Do we have any board members who want to make a comment? Yeah, Mr. Morris?
Yeah, I just wanted to request that you guys also consider the frequency of the standard reviews. My understanding is that for the core curriculum, the standard reviews once every 7 years. And we all know as quickly as the technology is moving, maybe it warrants more frequent reviews of those computer science standards once they're established.
Okay, anybody else? Well, we have a motion and a second to adopt the membership of the early, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. We have a motion and a second on item 7.1. Do we have any objection? There'd be no objection. The motion stands adopted. Number 7.2.
Your next item is on page 35, item 7.2, consideration of the membership of the Early Childhood Care and Education Commission. The recommendation is to approve.
We have a motion. Mr. Harris. Mr. Hollis seconds. Thank you. We have a presentation? No presentation. Okay.
No
Do we have any audience? Okay. We have a motion and a second to adopt motion for 7.2. There being no objection, the motion stands adopted. 7.3.
We're on, your next item is on page.
Oh, you skipped that, I'm sorry.
45, item 8.1, consideration revisions to Bulletin 111, the Louisiana School District and State Accountability System regarding work-based learning points and calculating a graduation index. The recommendation is to approve as a notice of intent revisions to Bulletin 111.
Okay. We have a motion from Dr. Armstrong and a second from Mr. Harris. He's very good at seconding. So, wait, hang on a second. So, I guess, let's see, do we have any? We have to,
No public comment.
is this a substitute motion she's doing?
It'll be additional, because we're still going to approve the
That's what I'm thinking.
notice of intent.
So we need to
Yeah.
approve it first, right?
Yeah, I think we're done with that.
Okay. This is on.
Let's go do public.
So we have some, we're going to adopt your, we're going to hear your motion after we do the first motion. Okay. So we have some audience folks that would like to come up, if I can put my glasses on.
Mr. Appel, while you do that, if it's okay, I just would like to share that item 8.1 has to do, there are two separate items that are very, very similar. 8.1 and then 8.3. So 8.1 deals specifically with the request that the board made of the department to consider adding value to internships and apprenticeships in the present accountability formula. And then 8.3, 8.3 deals specifically with the policy that defines what work-based learning is for the state of Louisiana. And so I just wanted to call out for the audience that depending on where they were testifying, that 8.1 is accountability and 8.3 is work-based learning policy.
Okay. First we have Kate, I'm sorry, I can hardly read your name, Schwinburne, is that right? I'm sorry. And Mary Beth Hughes. And then maybe Jim Garvey wants to come up? Go ahead. Are y'all working together?
Oh, no, I just feel like it's like a special honor.
That's no honor. We got rid of him, so it's okay. Please.
Kate Swinburne. So I'm Kate Swinburne. I'm co-founder and president of Youth Force NOLA. We are the career and technical education intermediary for New Orleans. We're also considered a national leader in college and career preparation. I am here today to state our support for the accountability proposal before you and to encourage you to adopt it today. Youth Force NOLA works with schools, students, families, higher education institutions, technical training providers, and employers to build pathways that prepare all students for college and career. We also leverage our expertise to support enabling career-connected learning policy, data systems, and narratives around the state. Work-based learning experiences like internships and apprenticeships both are incredibly valuable for all students. They lead to higher wages, increased rates of post-secondary matriculation, and regional retention of talent. For example, 97% of respondents in Youth Force NOLA's most recent survey of our internship program's alumni since 2015 found that they are currently employed, enrolled in post-secondary education, or a combination of both. So that's 97% of young people who completed a Youth Force internship are still connected and are advancing towards their success. The policy before you establishes an important foundation for including work-based learning in the comprehensive accountability policy that you will be considering in the near future. Youth Force is looking forward to working with you and the department to ensure that the comprehensive system that you adopt accurately reflects the values of career-connected learning experiences offered by our high schools across the state and ones that prepare students for college and career success.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning, Bessie members. My name is Mary Beth Hughes, representing Law B. We serve as the state's Chamber of Commerce, and I also want to echo the same sentiment. We are in strong support of this accountability measure. I think the importance of this work-based accountability measure and investment in apprenticeships, associate's degrees, dual enrollment, and career training cannot be overstated. When you zoom out a bit, this is bigger than just awarding schools with points for work-based learning. It's bigger than giving kids various options and opportunity for growth in their careers. That is incredibly important, and I just want to say that. But while that is important, I want to give you the business case for incentivizing schools when it comes to work-based learning. This is about beefing up Louisiana's workforce and investing in our talent right here at home. If we want to attract industry, to grow industry, and retain industry, we've got to prioritize these programs and investments right now. We can't wait, and that's why this measure is so incredibly important. To put it in perspective, every single one of our southern neighbors are beating us when it comes to employment growth, including Mississippi. And I know we like to give Mississippi a hard time, but they're beating us in this area. To put a finer point on it, Lobby represents businesses from across the state. Businesses large and small, we represent over 2,500 members statewide. Everyone from Ochsner Health to Joe's Tire Shack, just to put it in perspective. We hear from our members all the time that their number one concern is finding qualified workers in skilled labor. They're not just looking for soft skills, and while showing up to work on time and drug-free is incredibly important, they need skilled labor. What a better way to nurture, grow, and produce talent for these companies that are right here or that are looking to invest in Louisiana than investing in our students right now. This is free training in high school. This is a no-brainer. And I want to say thank you to you, our Bessie Board, President Ronnie Morris, and Dr. Brumley for recognizing that Louisiana businesses and industry need this measure as well. At Lobby, we believe there's not a more pressing issue than investing in our students through these innovative and creative ways, and we strongly support this accountability measure and look forward to working with each of you as we kickstart Louisiana's future workforce. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. Welcome.
Good morning.
Mr. Garvey, I just wanted to say welcome to Bessie. Didn't want to confuse that original signal. You're welcome, and we appreciate your testimony this morning.
Yes. This is very unusual being on this side of the table.
Please identify yourself.
Yes. Jim Garvey with the Louisiana Workforce Commission, Executive Legal Counsel. It is interesting being on this side. One of the things that kept me up last night thinking about this, after spending 16 years on that side and watching people get it wrong, not turning on the mic, not getting it close enough, I was worried I was not going to do it right. but I think I got that under control. Another unusual thing about being on this side of the table is something that occurred to me this morning as I was preparing to come here and passionately support this item. I realized that after passionately supporting items like this for 16 years, now as a state employee, I'm not supposed to lobby groups like yours. So I am here to give you information instead of to lobby you. And the most important information I could give you is that you should pass this. But really, to give you information, these programs are some of the fastest ways to get children, students into high-paying jobs, jobs that will change their lives. This is not your minimum wage type job that these programs lead to. These really are high-paying jobs. And it's a lot of extra work. We had some descriptions here of the work that has gone into it, that groups have put into it, that the department has put into it. And they have been willing to put in the hard work to create these programs because of the tremendous results that it produces for the children. So if you are in favor of better jobs, high-paying jobs for students, then I would suggest that you support this because it is extra work for schools and they need the incentive to reward them for the extra work that it takes. So if you are for changing children's lives, then I think you would be for supporting this proposal. Thank you.
Mr. Garvey, Dr. Clark and I had the privilege of going to one of the larger school systems last week for an extended meeting, and this topic came up, and it was disappointing to hear that out of thousands and thousands of children, only like 35 were taking advantage of it. I think that was the number. I asked the reason for that, and the reason was because business had not decided to, employ them because of the complications with whatever the process is. So we need to work with you guys on the Workforce Commission to align our efforts to reach out to business and find out why they're not employing, apprentices and interns, and try to solve those problems. I don't know exactly what the details are. It wasn't the purpose of that meeting. But apparently it's going to be a problem if we want to increase these openings for young people. We got to solve the problem of business and why they don't take them. So it's just something that we need to work together on.
We are very aware of it at the Workforce Commission, and we are working on that issue, and we are making, I would say, a lot of progress in this direction. It is one of the hottest topics that we are working on at the Workforce Commission. And approving this will help. We need to pull businesses from one end, maybe from the Workforce Commission, and we need to push businesses from the school end. So we need to incentivize schools to go through the effort of pushing businesses on their end. And I think with those two efforts, we will get the job done.
Great, thank you. Any questions for this group? Okay, then we have three more. Thank you for coming, and don't forget where we are.
Can't forget, it's
I didn't think
my
so.
card does it by memory.
Okay, we have Barry Irwin and Terrence Lockett and Adam Knapp. Do they all want to speak? Oh, I'm sorry. Barry does not wish to speak, and neither does Mr. Lockett, but Adam Knapp does wish to speak.
Members, my name is Adam Knapp. I'm the CEO of the Committee of 100 and want to introduce Philip Roseman, a cardiologist from Shreveport, who's our vice chair of the Committee of 100. I believe he also turned in a card, and would love to introduce Philip to say a few words.
Quote in my office that says the best time to plant a tree is
Thank you, Dr. Rosen, and I just want to say something on my behalf, but all those years ago when I was chairman of Senate Education, you were always there, and you took your time to come to Baton Rouge to speak for children. It's rare, I will tell you that, but it's very much appreciated by us, and so we're happy to work with you. And I would direct you all's efforts toward trying to find out what are the obstacles that business face or potentially face to keep them from wanting to participate. So that would be my challenge to you guys and LABI and the other business-based community efforts. So, Mr. Knapp.
Let me just say to your question, I think before coming to the Committee of 100, I was the CEO of the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and we set up an intern program with our school systems in the region with the explicit goal that we wanted to have thousands of students and hundreds of businesses engaged in this problem. We found exactly the same thing that you said, Mr. Appel, which is that employers didn't place a whole lot of value in hiring high school students, and the work of creating that value is what Mr. Garvey said a moment ago. It's an interplay between education, institutions, and systems, bringing students forward, and businesses being encouraged to look at this as the pipeline of talent, as you've heard all of our speakers today address. But that is something that we are, in a way of saying it, building a new muscle memory that really doesn't exist in Louisiana, but exists in other states and in other countries. And that's really what we're committed to, is to helping to build that program. And it's going to be a lot of work on the employer side. But what you are doing to place that in the accountability system will be a huge part of setting that forward as an opportunity that businesses really start to be encouraged in that direction. And we're going to do our part to encourage employers in the same way.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Do we have any other comments? Or at this time, I think Dr. Armstrong might have, oh, I'm sorry, you.
I think I'll make my comment after Dr. Armstrong
Okay.
makes her motion.
I think Dr. Armstrong has a substitute motion we might want to take up. So you want to make a motion?
And yes, and I turned on my microphone. So beginning with the 2026 school performance score, a cohort member completing an internship in work-based learning experience as defined in Bulletin 741 shall earn an additional 5 points up to a maximum of 160 points. A cohort member completing a fast-forward aligned apprenticeship shall earn the same number of points as a cohort member with an associate's degree.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand the motion? Dr. Brumley, you want to explain anything? Okay. Do we have any objection? Or you want to comment, please?
Yes, I wanted Mr. Garvey to come back up to the microphone.
Do we need a drum roll, Mr. Castillo?
Yes, I'm actually sitting in Mr. Garvey's seat where he
I
usually
noticed
sat
that
in
you
the past.
shifted from one side to the other, and then
I
we
did.
had one of
This
the
was
most
in-
conservative Republicans was sitting on this side.
Yeah. This is in
kind of a-
honor of your service, Mr. Garvey. I'm sitting here to celebrate your many years of service on Bessie. But I do consider you to be not only legal counsel in your new role, but an expert in terms of your service and commitment to education. So first of all, thank you for that service.
Happy to do it.
In light of that experience that you've had on Bessie and now in your current role, does this motion go far enough in terms of we're couching this in the graduation cohort index? But we're discussing, sort of deliberating, will it do enough to really incentivize? And Mr. Knapp spoke earlier, and in terms of really pushing the needle, because in Baton Rouge and perhaps in other areas, we really hadn't got quite that buy-in from businesses, and I think this is a huge step forward, and glad that we're taking that step. But is it enough, and what else perhaps could we do?
Well, I'd start by saying, no, it's not enough, but it's a start. And very often, long journeys start with one step. So I would suggest that you take this step today. But there are several other things in the pipeline. There's an item 8.3 coming up, which is another step, and I'm going to speak very briefly on that issue also. And then you have work that is supposed to come to a head in June. There will be a third step. And pretty soon, with these steps taking place, you'll find that we will get to the goal that we're looking for. So no, this is not enough, I don't think, but it is a very good way to start. And I would encourage it to be followed up with the other steps as I just mentioned.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, substitute motion by Dr. Armstrong. Does anybody have any comments?
Mr. Appel, if I could, I
Please.
just want to clarify a little bit about what I understand from the substitute motion. So basically, what will happen here is that for a student that is interested and attains an apprenticeship, that would be valued at the same level as a student who pursues and receives an associate degree. So all of the conversation that we've had about making sure that we have a level of equity between career and college is addressed in this particular motion. So it does bring both of those things to the same place. And so I just want to call that out, that that's what this does. But also to Mr. Garvey's point too, that a revised comprehensive plan is forthcoming in June that looks at the entirety of the accountability system per directive of the board.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on substitute motion, rather. Do we have any objection to the substitute motion? Okay, that substitute motion stands adopted. At this time, I would like to make a motion, and let me just very briefly explain what this is about. I believe it was last month, our last meeting, I did a motion that directed LDOE to prepare the new, what at that time was the new accountability system. In fact, it's not new. There seems to be a lot of confusion about what we're doing. So the purpose of my motion, which I'll read in a moment, is to make it clear that this is a revision and a compilation of the accountability system that we have in effect today so that it can keep up with current problems and issues and become the gold standard of accountability system for the country. But it's not a brand new from scratch accountability system. That's the background of this motion. So at this time I'll read it. I move to direct LDOE to present at the June 24 AG2 II meeting for Bessie consideration a comprehensive update report with specific recommendations to revise Louisiana's current K-12 school accountability system with consideration for the following. Influence derived from the College and Career Readiness Commission's definition of college and career readiness and jointly approved by Bessie and the Board of Regents. Methodology and weighting for both absolute performance and student growth. Efforts to simplify the system, increase rigor and transparency, feedback received from both the Superintendent's Advisory Council and the Accountability Council at the appropriate time, public feedback from a general survey created by LDOE, and appropriate timelines for implementation, allowing for any necessary high school scheduling adjustments. That's my motion, and I would appreciate a second. Mr. Harris seconds. Is there any questions about my motion? No questions, then the motion any objection to that motion? No objections. So the motion stands adopted. Thank you all. Okay, next.
Your next item is on page 49, item 8.2, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 135, Health and Safety, regarding medication administration. The recommendation is to approve as a notice of intent revisions to Bulletin 135.
Okay.
Motion.
We need a motion to.
We're getting there.
We're going to call you. Mr. Hollis moves and Mr. Harris, not Dr. Harris, approve. Seconds.
Mr. Pell, if I may, just to explain here for the board the intent of this particular item. So Bessie has a policy that says that all medications that are going to be used at school have to first be utilized at home before they can be utilized at school, essentially. And so what this particular policy change allows for is that in an emergency situation, the initial dosage can happen at a school. And so probably the most readily understood example would be something like an EpiPen. If a student was suspected to have some type of allergic situation and the doctor had prescribed an EpiPen, but it had never been used, and the situation happened at school, there would be no way to administer that at home first if the first instance was at school. And so that's the reason for this particular shift, and just wanted to clarify that before we move forward.
Thank you. Okay, we have one lady like to speak. Is it Amanda? Amanda Mitchell. Please come on up. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, Stephanie Charles does not wish to speak.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. As you mentioned, my name is Amanda Mitchell. I'm the Executive Director for Epilepsy Alliance Louisiana. I also sit on various boards, both locally and nationally, related to epilepsy and children with disabilities, including the National Association for School Nurses Advisory Group related to students with epilepsy. But my most important hat is as Jackson's mom. Jackson is my 7-year-old son who has epilepsy that then caused him to have developmental disabilities and other delays. I have been advocating for a change in this policy for about the past 5 years. And because people are not often familiar with epilepsy, I reached out to one of our pediatric neurologists and I was like, please give me something to help to describe what we can be dealing with. And so, of course, in true fashion, right, I received this journal article. I won't read the whole thing. I only have 4 minutes. Convulsive status epilepticus is the most common neurological emergency in children and is associated with significant morbidity and mortality. Morbidities can include later development of epilepsy, cognitive impairment, and psychiatric impairments. So I wanted to read that so you know when I say our children can die, our children can die. My son at 4 months old had a 45-minute seizure. Now it is estimated or widely accepted that status epilepticus is anything past 5. So when I started to work for this organization, imagine my surprise when I got a call from a parent for a school who would not allow their child to have epilepsy rescue medication on campus. My heart was in my stomach. This has to be a misunderstanding. This has to be a fluke. For the past 5 years, I've continued to get those calls. I've had this policy updated once, and in 2002, I passed a law to try to avoid this specific issue. And our schools don't understand. Not only have I gotten calls from parents, I've also gotten calls from neurologists and school nurses themselves who are terrified because they understand the risks of their school administrators saying you can't have this on campus. And so while I do hope we continue to do that, to pass this, I do ask too that you consider to look how our schools are keeping these kids safe. And while I hope for a lot of change, I also want to make sure to highlight those parishes, specifically East Baton Rouge and St. Tammany, who have done an absolutely wonderful job of working with us to help keep kids safe. And they've done that by ensuring that schools or students have access to a seizure action plan, which describes their unique needs, and also by making sure that they are following the law and that their school personnel are trained in seizure first aid and safety. So again, the organization that I work with is Epilepsy Alliance Louisiana. We offer this training for free. I travel across the state to provide it. We are a staff of 3, so while I wish we could do it in person all the time, that is not possible. But we do also have a free on-demand training that can be put into the portal. These are not really hard things, to help keep these kids safe. So I appreciate your time and consideration today for our students.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Well, we appreciate it. It's an honor to be able to take care of the issue because I know Mr. Garvey would have liked to have when he was here. Have to give him a hard time. But I just have one question, and that is, are school nurses trained to to recognize the symptoms of epileptic seizures, so that they know how to apply this medicine?
It depends. So as you can imagine, school nurses have a lot, right, that they have to be
Right.
responsible for. There are over 20 different types of seizures. So to expect someone without training to be able to recognize all 20 types is unrealistic. So we have varying degrees of education and knowledge we found working with our school nurses. Included in that law we passed in 2022 does require school nurses to be trained. But again, I have no statistics on what the
Okay.
compliance is for that. Just that I, again, have personally trained school nurses, and they are always grateful for the additional information.
Well, thank you very much for your efforts, and hopefully we can pass this right away and get taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion stands adopted.
Your next item is on page 51, item 8.3, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 741, Louisiana Handbook for School Administrators regarding work-based learning. The recommendation is to approve as a notice of intent revisions to Bulletin 741.
Okay, and we have a motion. I think the same, okay.
Second.
So,
Ms. Harris.
Ms. Champagne and Mr. Harris.
Gotcha.
Okay, do we have?
Mr. Appel,
Yes, Dr.
just
Brumley.
to introduce this particular item, this builds structure around what a work-based learning experience would look like in the state of Louisiana. I would call out that it is a balance of 20% of classroom time where students are learning what employers would call the soft skills type of information, and then it's 80% on-the-job training. And so whenever you look at the number and it says, for instance, it says that 132.75 hours, that's essentially the amount of time for a Carnegie credit in our state. So we didn't just make up the number out of the air. But then we divided that by 80 and 20. We spent a lot of time looking at other states that are leading in this particular space to see what they're doing. And that's where the policy development ended up in this particular recommendation. We've tried to do our best to work with a number of the groups in the state that are experts on this particular space, as well as the Workforce Commission, as we're trying to be very tightly aligned with them as we move forward. But I just wanted to, Mr. Appel, introduce this particular item and what it's doing. It is defining for our schools what an apprenticeship might be, what an internship might be, and then how a work-based learning experience would operate.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, Mr. Garvey, do you have any comments further? Well, come on down. And then Mr. Knapp and Dr. Roseman, do y'all want to make any further comments? Okay. Kate Swinburne and Stacy Alexis would like to speak. And then while they're coming down, Aaron Benderly is in favor but does not wish to speak, and Barry Irwin of Cable is in favor but does not wish to speak. Mr. Garvey.
I would defer to ladies first.
Thank you. So Kate Swinburne, back from Youth Force NOLA. I think I've established our role as the Career Connected Learning Intermediary. What I wanted to expand upon then is that since 2015, we have supported over 1,200 young people through the Youth Force Internship Program. That means that we have also then liaised with 25-plus high schools in working to help those 1,200 young people earn credit for completing that internship. And I would say that policy has been challenging to navigate. So we are here today to support this policy as it will clarify for our educator partners what is needed for a young person to earn credit for completing an internship. And of course, this will play nicely with item 8.1 from today in terms of schools receiving points in accountability. Further, we believe that this policy will set a strong foundation for the implementation of the MFP adder that you have proposed in this year's MFP package that's currently sitting with the legislature. It does have a designation for internships, and we are excited about that. That, of course, could then help make sure that young people are compensated in completing those internships. And really just the alignment, of course, between Carnegie credits and internship requirements. We also appreciate that it expands policy to account for summer work-based learning. and the work as part of a registered apprenticeship. That has been an area of confusion for our educator partners. And finally, of course, on soft skills, Youth Force was pleased to be part of and contribute to the definition of college and career readiness that the Bessie and Board of Regents adopted late last year, which really calls out soft skills as an essential part of a young person's experience in our system in Louisiana. And so we are pleased to see soft skills also being incorporated into part of how we are defining work-based learning. Finally, of course, just to let you know, we stand eager and ready to support implementation of this policy should you pass it, and look forward to seeing it enacted.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Stacy Alexius. I'm the Career and Technical Education Coordinator for St. Tammany Parish Public Schools. And I want to start by thanking you very much for valuing work-based learning. We value it very much in St. Tammany Parish, and I very much appreciate the LDOE staff coming up with this new policy that you're reviewing now. I hated to check opposed to because I think it's fantastic, but there's one little sentence that I am opposed to, and in order to tell you why, I want to paint you a little bit of a picture. We have a very robust internship program in St. Tammany Parish. We currently have 194 seniors interning at local businesses ranging from large hospitals to mom and pop shops in some of our more rural communities. The things that these kids are doing are amazing, and all of you, including you, Mr. Garvey, are invited to come and visit us at any time to take a look at our internship program, which we're very, very proud of. Everything outlined in this policy we're doing. We have very strict guidelines for predetermining what type of work they're going to be doing. We have the 20% classroom requirement that Dr. Bromley spoke of earlier. We have very stringent paperwork guidelines. They're checked on. All of the things that are outlined in the policy, I'm very pleased to say that we're doing already. What we're not doing is paying them. And that's the one little sentence in number 2 on the policy where it says, the very last sentence says, this must include financial compensation. I'm not sure how we as a school system can ask our community partners that we've spent so many years building these programs up to. I'm not sure how we can ask them to pay 194 kids. The hospitals, we might be able to, but what about the little mama pop shops in some of these rural areas? I'm really not sure how we're going to navigate that. And what I don't want is to water down the program and have a separate unpaid volunteer situation. I want these same guidelines in place for our unpaid interns. I think that is a very valuable experience. They're getting to do a lot of things to the best of their ability. There are some high school students, right? I mean, they're not going to let them do all of the things at the hospitals. But this would put us in a really bad situation if it is passed as written, because I can see 194 going down to like 10, which is the exact opposite of what we're talking about doing here in growing these programs. We've been working all year on how we're going to grow our programs for next year, but if compensation is mandatory, I don't know what we're going to do there. So thank you for your consideration.
My question would be, is that a legal issue that compensation is mandatory? I guess we need a legal counsel to tell us, but I don't know.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I had a question too. So if this is passed as written, why would that stop participating businesses to continue what they're doing on an unpaid basis?
Well, what if they can't afford to put these kids on a minimum wage, which is in
No, but my question is, still the same question. Why would this stop them from continuing to do what they're doing, which is providing opportunities for these students without pay?
I think that might go into more of LDOE policy, like could we use the same course code, which is the CDF generating course code, which we use to pay the mileage for the teachers that have to drive over there to check on them, right? I mean, we can't just say, go ahead and volunteer. So some of that, I think, goes beyond Bessie policy into more granular detail.
But before we get down into the weeds, just general concept, right? We talk about 194, businesses or students? 194 students have relationships with businesses where students are getting this practical experience and businesses are opening their doors, providing these opportunities, okay, which we all agree is great today. Current policy allows for that. We've apparently got healthy relationships here. I'm trying to understand if this policy is passed, there might be some community partners that are able to provide the compensation, and they would be recognized as internships, school systems would get 5 points towards their SPS, but there could still be other relationships in place that are in place today where businesses are providing these opportunities without compensation. The difference would be the school systems wouldn't get the 5 points because it wouldn't meet the stated criteria if this system passed today. So what I'm trying to understand is, do you feel like these community partners would stop providing these opportunities?
Honestly, I can't speak for them. I think that some of them would stop. I mean,
Why would they stop?
well, perhaps they wouldn't stop in the manner that you're speaking, but then the kids would be, in my opinion, doing identical work, some for pay, some for not, some accruing SPS points, some not, even though they're doing the same type of experience.
Okay, I'm just trying to
I
understand.
don't know
and-
that the businesses would say, no, we're not going to do it anymore. I do think you're setting up a system of have and have-nots, though, without specifically addressing an unpaid situation in this policy.
Okay, thank you. Make a good point. I just want to talk through it. Thank you.
Could you, Mrs.
Chairman.
Swinburne, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. I certainly, and just building off the point of setting up a system of have and have-nots, I would say Youth Force is in favor of including a compensation requirement, in that there's vast research that shows that young people coming from low-income backgrounds often have to make a very challenging choice between work-based learning and making money for their family. And we're particularly in a competitive environment now, while food service and retail are paying well above minimum wage. And so we are big advocates for making sure that our young people experiencing poverty are able to access these types of opportunities that really can be the differential in college access and college completion.
So you all pay your,
We do pay, and with that I would advocate, I would point out that the policy does not stipulate who needs to offer the compensation. So back to the MFP adder that you all have included, that MFP adder, should the legislature approve it, could then enable school systems to pay students those stipends. We in Youth Force navigate where we have a set of construction employers who do pay our interns directly, and then we Youth Force pay the other young people. So we're able to make everybody whole. And I want to also just make the point that work-based learning is about helping our young people develop real-world skills and real-world insights, and real jobs make real money. And so I would advocate finally that, to the point that this is around our young people developing their sense of confidence and agency and what it means to act in the real world, that means they bring home a paycheck or they make a stipend. And so we Youth Force would look forward to working with our collaborators, our colleagues in districts across the state, to think about how they might similarly advocate to their council, city council, or others. The way we are able to fund it is through an allocation from New Orleans City Council. And with that, I think the MFP adder and other community efforts could help our school system partners find ways to compensate all placements.
are they paid at a minimum wage level?
We
or-
are working, actually, we're raising the stipends for the summer to be the equivalent of, I think $12 an hour. And so they're paid as a stipend, so it is not an hourly as much as it is a deliverables-based, to put it in line with completing the course, but it's going to be about $12 an hour equivalent. So the total stipend for a young people person doing an internship this summer, I think, is going to be around $2,100.
I mean, I can see the significance of what you're suggesting, because, again, we were with another school system who does not have good participation, and maybe that's part of the hang-up. But I really would like to get a legal counsel to say whether that violates federal law if you don't pay somebody for working.
There is, yeah.
I mean, I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if it's fair to ask for off-the-cuff response. I see Mr. Garvey smiling, he don't want to answer that one. But I think we'd have to know that. Okay. Mr. Garvey, you want to jump in?
Yes, thank you. Jim Garvey, Executive Legal Counsel for the Workforce Commission. Again, just providing information, not lobbying, but providing information. And going back to what Mr. Castile was talking about, this being a journey, this is, what you're doing today, if you pass this, is not the end. It's the beginning, and it's the second step, you might say. If you are in support of work-based learning and higher wages for children and higher paying jobs, then I think you would want to support this. Sometimes in a journey, you find out that there are issues that come up that you were not expecting, and I think that that's what's being pointed out here. I think that if you pass this as it is, you can then come back in the next few months and address this new issue that has come up. You're scheduled to have this group of issues come back in June, and I think maybe you could address this issue when you come back in June. This agenda item is partly a culmination of significant outreach by the department, outreaching to the Workforce Commission, and that's part of the reason why I'm here today. Bessie and the department has expertise in education. The Workforce Commission has an expertise more so in the job arena. I think it takes both groups and other groups, the LCTCS group, to get this right, to make sure that these programs lead to what we want, which is the high-paying jobs. They could, if they're not done right, could lead to jobs that are, you might say, dead ends, and we don't want that. With having the experts on both ends involved in this, I think we will ensure that we get the right kind of jobs culminating from this process. So I would say that if you are in favor of that, then you would be in favor of the proposal as it is today. And not answer any questions.
Okay, I think Mr. Castillo has some questions. And Mr.
I wanted to chime in with respect to the point about compensation. And I want us to think a little bit about what it is that we're trying to accomplish. We certainly want to compensate students, but Mr. Knapp raised a point earlier about the difficulty of getting sometimes employers to participate. I work with a school where we have a similar program. We've got some employers that are capable of compensating students. We've got some that will provide the same work-based experience, but they may be a nonprofit, and they just don't have it within their budget to compensate students. But we want to make sure that the students have the same experience, and get an experience. And sometimes you have to make a decision if it's only going to be about compensation of the student, then perhaps you may not have as many slots for students to get that experience. And so I certainly understand the point, because I know on our end, we made the decision that irrespective of whether the student was compensated, we wanted them to have that sort of experience where they learn what it's like to be in the workplace, to learn to go to a job, to develop those skills that will prepare them afterwards. Certainly if they need a job and they want to go and work at a fast food restaurant or something just for compensation, they can do that. But what we put together here with an academic component that requires a student to prepare before they go into the workplace, to spend some time in the classroom, to develop the skills, to ensure that they're successful once they go and actually present themselves at a place of employment. It's important, because what we're doing here in the K-12 system is not just trying to employ students, but prepare them for the future. And I think it's an excellent point, and frankly one that we grappled with ourselves, because we had a cohort of students, let's say 50 students, who were ready and able to be placed, but only, say, 30 that were able to pay, and another 20 that said, we'll take them, but we're a nonprofit, we don't have it in our budget, we can't afford them. But we'll afford them the opportunity to learn. We will spend our resources to supervise them, to guide them, to give them those experiences. And we could have chosen to say, no, we won't send the other 20, and that becomes the problem. And so I think it is something to strongly consider, because, again, in terms of creating the haves and have-nots, we really want that experience for children, so when they leave the K-12 system, they're as prepared as possible for the future. I know, Mr. Garvey, we don't want to put you on the spot and ask you your legal opinion, but it might be helpful to get that. And to the extent that we're approving something today, maybe one quick fix to it is that the words shall and may make a difference. And instead of shall be compensated, it may be that we put may be compensated. And that way we ensure we create as many opportunities for students as possible, but don't exclude opportunities for others.
Mr. Birkin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if this is passed today, is it easy for employers to participate in this? Are we creating more red tape, less red tape, or getting them to jump through hoops? Is it all good?
My interpretation would be this policy does not have implications for the employer side of the partnership. I think certainly it clarifies then for the school system partners their role and responsibility in implementing. But my read of the policy does not include major implications for the employer side, except for it does delineate the quantity of hours. I think you should chime in, but I think this does make clear this is not job shadowing. This is a real deal internship.
So if an employer wants to participate in this, it's easy to do. They can just get the kids, go to work for them, and it's easy. They don't have to, there's not a lot of red tape.
Listen, nobody wants to go and hang out with 17-year-olds all day, except for the blessed, wonderful people who work in our high schools, right? So I would say there is work that all of us need to do, of course, always to help prepare supervisors and employers to host a 17-year-old or 15-year-old or 19-year-old in their workplace. This is something that it is about preparing them. Is it about doing the work for them to think through the work plans and set up that young person for success and set up the experiences? Teenagers are awesome, but again, we have to, not everybody thinks teenagers are awesome, and so we need to do the work to help prepare them. But, I think, to me, there's a lot of, I don't read this policy as impacting that.
So, Jessica Vallelongo, Department of Education. So, Mr. Birkin, the policy actually does a good bit to enable industry to come to the table. So one component of it is a requirement that the school system and the employer discuss the memorandum of understanding between the student and the employer. So in that way, it encourages that development of relationships to build and expand programs and work-based learning opportunities for students.
Mr. Chair. Yes.
So point of clarification, I guess. When I'm reading the revisions to the current policy, it looks to me that all we did, instead of saying cooperative education students shall be paid, we're just saying now students shall be paid and not just delineating cooperative ed. Am I correct?
Yes.
That's all I see different in this policy on that part.
On that part, yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Knapp, do you want to get some input from business side, please?
There was some questions that came up during SAC about what applied where. So there are 3 types of work-based learning programs. The cooperative education, from what I understand, the internships, and the structured on-the-job training. Jessica, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then over here, it used to say that only the cooperative in education mentions payment in number 1 over on the page 52. But then on page 53, we're changing cooperative education, which was the only one that mentions the funding, the money, and we're applying that to all 3 of those types of programs. So that is the change. It's not just referencing the cooperative education payments. It's saying that all 3 of these. So I don't think it would be a problem. I mean, there are internships that are unpaid. I mean, many people do that. Student teaching used to be unpaid, for example. So I think we could say may instead of shall for those, and then the minimum wage would apply to the cooperative education only. That's just a suggestion. That makes sense.
Mr. Castillo?
Mr. Chairman, along those lines, I'd like to give employers and our schools as much flexibility as possible to create opportunities for children and take a step forward in that direction. And I would offer a substitute motion that the wording be changed from shall to may to create that flexibility.
Okay, do we have a second for that? Ms. Mellerin, seconds? Sure.
Thank you. I agree with Dr. Castillo completely, because that one word can change the meaning of the entire intent. And I feel that it would hinder our children if we put shall, because we are ignoring some businesses that cannot compensate them. My question is in sentence 2, I think is what was brought up. At the end, it says this must include financial compensation. So is must and shall the same meaning? Because if we're changing the word shall to may, we should probably look through the document and make sure that we are consistent in putting that, in putting
right.
may, inserting may instead of shall, or a must.
Yeah, I think, Ms. Champagne, the policy doesn't prohibit school systems from building relationships with business and industry around unpaid work. It doesn't prohibit that. That work can still occur, and we've talked with school systems about creating a course code that really captures that unpaid work experience. But for the purposes of calling it an internship, the internship definition would mean paid. That wouldn't prohibit the unpaid work from occurring, the job shadowing, the clinical and practicum rotations from occurring. This would mean for the policy that internship definition would include that financial compensation for the student. And that financial compensation happening in that structured internship is really valuable to a student because we have to think of that classroom experience, right? So a student empowered through this would be earning their first paycheck, having that teacher be able to guide them on how to invest that paycheck, how to save, how to open up a checking account. So there's a lot of stuff in that wraparound within the policy that would be benefited from that financial compensation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I just would want to respond to that. I've been teaching law school for 23 years, and I get students who come to me and say, look, I'd like to have a paid clerkship program. Sometimes I might say, well, we don't have that, and I can't offer it to you. And the student will come back and say, I take an unpaid internship program to get the experience, to get the exposure. And that is sometimes equally as valuable in terms of the experience. You don't get the compensation, but you get the experience. I think we all know of unpaid internships that lots of employers offer. The other side of this is that what we're doing is we're considering tweaking the accountability system for the purpose of incentivizing schools to make greater efforts to get more students this experience. If you want to incentivize the schools, you want to create more opportunities for schools to want to include more students. If that's the purpose of this, is that we're trying to create, I think that's the point of the accountability system, is to sort of incentivize behavior of schools and school systems. I think given what we're trying to do, and we said that this may not be enough, I certainly don't want to water down the incentive. In fact, I want to increase the incentive. And again, those experiences, everybody would prefer to get paid. But I know as a student, and lots of students that I've had said, look, just give me the experience and let me take it from there.
Thank you.
So, and I would say must and shall. The appropriate way to do that is add the discretionary language of may to cure the challenge that we're trying to overcome.
So my interpretation of your motion is in line with Ms. Champagne's comments, is that
Yes, Mr.
that the
Chairman.
staff would be charged with making sure that the language of the entire motion be in alignment with may.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Wait, Mr. Birkin? Doesn't matter. Mr. Harris?
Just real quick, because this, as I read through this yesterday, we're now giving credit for an internship will be equal to an associate's degree. Is that
An apprenticeship.
Excuse me,
Not a-
apprenticeship,
yes, sir.
okay. So I want to make that distinction. So, and that would bring up another discussion, but this is particularly pertaining to internships. The definition of an internship is either paid or unpaid when you look at the dictionary. So just wanted, what was the, and I think we've gotten your reason behind putting in the compensation.
Mr. Harris, I'll add to that. You know, we're okay with the may or shall. Whenever we built this, we built it in conjunction with the workforce groups that felt like there was really a great value in having it to be paid. And so that's why that was included. So just for background, that's why that's there. And I know Mr. Knapp is here. He may want to speak to that, and why that's important from their standpoint. But just for your information, that's why we built it out in that particular way.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Birkin, you want to say something?
So again, looking at page 52, number 2 and 3, at the end of number 2, it says this must include financial compensation, what we were talking about, but also number 3A, again, setting requirements on these, and I don't know if it's our responsibility to put something so definitive. The apprentice must receive full-time employment. At the end of that, at least one journey worker must be present and supervising for every apprentice in the program at all times. So I guess my question to this is, does this come from something that the industry wanted? Are we placing burdens on this type of thing that, again, shouldn't we be leaving it up to them, the employer, and to do that? Or we're setting requirements for these that might lessen the participation?
I would say that needs to stay because, Mr. Birkin, that's for a registered apprenticeship. And a registered apprenticeship is, for instance, the student is fully immersed, maybe for 2 years, and they're learning to be an electrician or a plumber, and so they actually would graduate high school after 2 full years of an experience on site, on job, learning to be that. And they would come out as a registered apprentice with a certificate where they could go to work as an electrician. So that's a difference from the registered apprenticeship versus the internship.
Can I answer your question? Is that okay? Mr. Knapp, you want to come up and tell us what y'all's thoughts are?
So quite fortunately, the woman who ran our internship programs happened to be in the audience to watch the proceedings from, so it was great to connect with Alice. So we had a chance to just briefly talk about this. In BRAC's experience, we found that the paid work, whether a small business or a large business, was something that employers did not see as a barrier. Over the course of 3 years of building that program, it was one that we always expected and knew it needed to be paid work for exactly what Mrs. Swinburne said, which is it really creates the bond between the employer and the employee to see the connection between paid work as something you're coming in for. And as a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old, you start to understand the value of showing up and being on time, that you're compensated for that. And that reward structure is super important in our experience to the work of an internship being appreciated and valued, that the employer sees value and places value in it, and the school system rewards it with credit time. And what you're doing is trying to make sure that you're blending those two things. We have moved in BRAC's work, and I say we, I shouldn't use that term anymore, but BRAC has moved to where this summer, all of their internships will be paid by the employer. And we have, I think, 90 some odd employers that are participating, and I think close to 200 students in the current school year program. And typically it's in the numbers of hundreds to almost thousands that participate during the summers, all of whom are paid. It has been blended between stipends from the school system and paid work from the employer and some outside grants. And so even though it says paid, how that gets paid is something that is worked through in different situations, and different employers have different setups. But that's been something that has now evolved over that 3 years to where the employers, having now gotten experience in the program, whether they're small businesses or larger ones see the importance and value of paying for that time for that student to come and participate. The other big thing that employers have been working through, to what Mr. Appel was asking about, is how do we make sure that the students are there enough time that they're gaining valuable experiences and not having short experiences. So the amount of time matters to the compensation as well. If you're expecting a person to be there for 106 hours, in many cases more than that, and what we found, that should be time that's paid for that student to really start to understand what is the nature of the connection between being employed and learning the skills while you're at the employer site. And so I would just encourage you that while I understand the debate and the challenge, it's one that is very important, I think, as a national best practice in internships and apprenticeships, is to start with the assumption of paid work and work through how that is accomplished, whether that's through stipends, employers, and ultimately, hopefully, all the way to where employers start to see the value of it. What we found on the employer side is they love the program. They absolutely love the opportunity to impart wisdom and skills upon students who are 17 and 18, and they just fall in love with these kids. And so the nature of paid work has created an incredible, valuable relationship for the employees of the existing employer as much as for that student. So I just want to add that additional insight.
Well, I got 3 questions for you. You just raised them all. So if some of the payment comes from school boards, by using the word shall, are we burdening school boards, school systems with the potential of having to pay some folks, and then therefore they would turn off on this program and not want to implement it?
So no, we found, our experience was the employers were really encouraged from the beginning that this was an expectation of employer-paid work, and that blended over time in the way that the district that we started out working with sought to do that blending, but ultimately it's moving to where it's all employer-paid in our experience, and that's really, I think, an important practice, and perhaps Ms. Swinburne or others can shed light on that.
How would having shall in there affect small businesses, mom and pop operations, instead of, I mean, a lot of your members are big corporations. I could see where they can absorb those costs.
We had, yeah, it's a great question. We had small businesses and large businesses equally participating in our programs in Baton Rouge, and maybe that's different in other communities. But it was not a difference between a small business or a large business, whether, again, especially knowing that it's a minimum wage level, and oftentimes above that, as you heard, that left that to the employer to work out what was the right amount of compensation. But at a minimum wage level, that was achievable. And these are typically not full-time positions either, right? So you're looking at 106 hours at minimum wage, and the employer having to determine if that's something they can accomplish or not.
Okay, my last question would be, would changing the verbiage to may give you all heartburn, or could you live with that and think your program would be sufficient?
I think from the experience of the Committee of 100 looking statewide, looking at this as the ultimate intent would be paid work is the right way to set it up. And I think leaving it as the way you had it originally drafted makes the most sense, I think, from a policy perspective. And then if you find that there are challenges with that after working in that implementation, I think you would come back and revisit it after kind of first going at it that first way.
Mr. Garvey?
Yeah, I'd like to mention a phrase that I think a lot of people have heard. It's called skin in the game. Think about that for a minute, and let me go to what we talked about earlier, which is the goal is to get these children onto a pathway that will lead to high-quality jobs, jobs that will change their lives. If you don't have skin in the game, you are less likely to have these children working on serious type work that will lead to a learning experience that will lead to a high-paying job, a quality job. Now, there's room, I would say, for unpaid jobs or unpaid internships, unpaid work-based learning. And I think that in the work that you will be doing between now and June, you can address that issue, create that kind of a program, and put it into the system. But what we have before you today is what is supposed to be a program leading to high-paying jobs where the employer and the people involved have skin in the game, and the skin in the game will cause them to make sure that this program is implemented in a quality manner that leads to quality jobs. So I would suggest passing this as it is proposed today, and then between now and June, work on this issue and put in place in what comes in June, a program to address unpaid type work-based learning.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Oh,
Just-
Mr.
just-
Harrod first.
Yeah.
Mr. Gust-
Just want to respond because as a practical matter, we have a school that's implementing this program now. And I just struggle with the notion that if a nonprofit who is committing its resources in terms of time and talent, but it doesn't have the financial resources to provide that work experience, that's not a valuable experience to a child. I know we want everyone to have a high-paying job at some point, but sometimes just getting a job in the beginning might be of value to a student. And so I certainly understand the gold standard that we want to get, but to paraphrase a good friend of mine and former colleague, sometimes we just need to take the first step. And I think taking that first step is incentivizing schools to create programs so that students will get their foot in the door. Again, this is about, I think, incentivizing the school systems as much as possible. And I think we keep raising the bar, but I just know firsthand one of the challenges that we had with implementing a full-fledged program like this is that we had some employers who said, we can't do it. We want your kids. We want them to come. We're going to give them a great experience. We just don't have the money to pay them because we're a nonprofit or we're that mom and pop organization. I just wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to incentivize schools to take advantage of something that we're trying to place before them to encourage them to get young people into places where they can get the benefit of that experience. And Mr. Knapp and I have been good friends for a long, long time, so it's a little bit awkward here, but we have a program that we've done this with, and I just would not want to say that those unpaid internship opportunities aren't as valuable to our school or school system because those nonprofits can't afford to pay our kids.
Mr. Chairman?
Just kind of piggybacking on what Mr. Garvey said, you know, we need to add value to this for the student and for the employer. The only problem I see that if we don't require some type of compensation, there may be those that have an internship that might be just loading the copy machine. And that would count similar to being learning a great skill that's going to lead to a higher paying job. So I just throw that as food for thought out there. I think that, you know, in my business, we always say there's value to everything. You don't give away a cup of coffee. You like to with a free fill-up. We put 10 cents on it so the customer sees there's a value to that coffee. I think that I can see where we're going with the compensation, that the employer sees a value to them as an employer that they are willing to pay for in this. I mean, I would love to have a kid working for me that showed up for work 40 hours a week and or whatever it's going to be, but they're there. It's part of the program that they have to do. I'd be more than willing to pay for that, and I'm not a big business, and I'm familiar with your organization that know that. I think it does great, and I do think the compensation part is a big piece of this. You know, and it's something that the students need to be used to, that reward for the value of their work. So that's just some food for thought for this committee to think about. Thank you.
Mr. Morris?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, when I consider the conversation, you know, it seems like it's two different types of experiences from a student's perspective. If I'm committing 106 hours to participate in a program at minimum wage, that's like $700 commitment from an employer for 106 hours, which maybe every nonprofit, you know, can't afford. But I look at the difference between the two experiences. If I'm a student and I've, in a paid position, I've got a contract with an employer to perform a service. There's a contract there that's binding. There's a certain expectation, a certain level of performance that's expected. And frankly, that's reality. That's what we're trying to do, is prepare kids for reality. Part of that reality is my employer's expectations, the compensation I'm going to get for the service that I provide, showing to work on time, potential raise in my compensation based on the service that I provide, the quality of the service that I provide. So to me, there are a number of lessons here that student will learn through that experience that an uncompensated student would not learn, in addition to paying taxes, which I think is important for our students to appreciate. So for me, it's two totally different life experiences for a student. And so if we want to call it internship or paid internship or whatever, I think it's really important that we appreciate that it's two totally different life experiences. Is it creating a barrier for opportunity? You know, I asked the question earlier, if employers are doing this today without compensation, just because we pass this proposed language, are they going to stop providing these opportunities? Does that create a barrier? If I'm an employer and I'm providing this opportunity today with an unpaid basis with a student, why would I stop providing that opportunity? Just because there are other employers that have the ability to pay the $700 per student, why would I stop providing that service? So I don't understand personally why it's going to create a barrier if these practices already exist today. I think there is a significance between the two life experiences. I think it's great for kids. I think it's great for employers. So personally, I support the language as it was initially proposed.
Anyone else?
I think we need to just clarify that there are unpaid and paid internships. I don't necessarily agree that. I did unpaid internships even in college at Martin Marietta and different places for the experience. And I don't believe that it was less than an experience that was paid. It was just not a paid experience, but I learned a lot, and I was offered a job after because of the experience and what I went through on that during that internship. So I'm not going to devalue what could have been learned through that process. I also have students who are in barbering and cosmetology programs that they are getting unpaid experience, and they'll probably get a job afterwards. They purchase all the materials they need, they purchase the blow dryers, et cetera, but they're unpaid internships that they still get the valued experience in. So I think maybe we should just qualify it, but going further into that high school and that district, if that course code is stated that it falls under what's in Bulletin 741, then you can't use that course code for anything other than that. A second course code would have to be developed that shows it's an unpaid internship. Otherwise, you're out of compliance in what that actual curriculum and the seat time hours that are being, that child has to have to receive that Carnegie credit, they would not qualify for that. So there is two different things that if we're gonna do two different things, we need to make sure that the schools are in compliance and the districts are following 741 in accordance to what a Carnegie credit earned is, if we're gonna change it. But I don't think we should just qualify it.
Okay, we've already been through. Anybody else with any comments?
Just, I want to thank Adam with C100 and Workforce Commission and Kate with Youth Force NOLA for collaborating with us on this, and certainly appreciate the school system's view. We were, in our work, we were modeling on what happens in other states, and we were working with our workforce groups, and there was a belief that it needed to be paid. If the will of the board wants that to be made, then we understand that. But what we were trying to do was look at other states and look at our workforce partners and what we felt like they believed would be the best experiences for the student. And so that's why we wrote the policy as is. And I want to thank the groups that helped us get here with what this is today.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Brumley. At this point, we have a motion, a substitute motion by Mr. Castile to promulgate this article with the changes to everything throughout that would reflect may instead of shall. I hope I've made that clear.
As it relates to compensation.
Correct. That's correct. I'm sorry. So are there any objections to the substitute motion? Seeing no objections, the substitute motion is adopted. I would like to make a subsequent motion, I think it requires a motion, that the board requests within 30 days, let's say, legal advice from both the Bessie and the LDOE councils on the legality of employing interns or apprentices at no pay. That's all it's just a request for legal advice. Do I have a second for that? Get a second? Ms. Miller? Hearing no objections, that motion passes. Okay.
Your next item is on page 55, item 8.4, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 1903, Louisiana Handbook for Students with Dyslexia, regarding dyslexia screening and interventions. The recommendation is to approve as a notice of intent revisions to Bulletin 1903.
Okay, do we have a motion? Mr. Harris moves, Mr. Perkins seconds. I love Mr. Harris. Such a big target. Do we have any comments? Do you want to make a comment?
Just that the information's in your backup, and if there are any specific questions, we're happy to answer them.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any objections? The motion stands adopted.
That concludes your agenda.
And I want to thank everyone. I think we had a very substantive discussion on workforce. It's an important issue, and I appreciate everyone in the audience sticking with us and helping us work our way through it. Thank you.